You have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV. Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hello, everybody. It is Ken Reed here, your TV guidance counselor, still here each and every week, lockdown in Reed Manor here in the northeast quadrant of what is technically still the United States. I am here each and every week to talk to you about classic television using back issues of TV Guide magazine as the entryway into our collective pasts. And I will continue to do this. Thank you guys for sticking around and for still listening to the show, and for everyone who has reached out to me and thanked me for doing the show or just mentioned how you listen to it. I appreciate it. It is difficult in the current environment to not feel disconnected from people and doing something like this, where for the most part, I am sort of speaking into the abyss in a lot of ways. It is nice to hear that you guys are still around and still listening, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate all the new listeners who have reached out and who have listened to the show, either heard me on something else or stumbled upon it in some way. And I want to thank you guys so much. I know that things are looking grim in a lot of ways here in the last couple weeks. It seems like every single day there is some new horror that has been unleashed upon the earth, but we will get through it. I think I won't get into details because I'm the last person anyone needs any sort of encouragement from. But, feel free to follow me on social media if you want to hear all my thoughts on those sorts of things at Kenneth W. Reed. And that's on Instagram and Twitter. I have deleted my personal Facebook for reasons you can probably ascertain. But again, I won't get into all that. Just want to say thanks again. I'm glad you guys are safe and that you're getting through it and doing the best you can. And we're all humans and we're all just trying. That's all we can really do. I am very excited for this week's episode. I have moved the show to be a remote show because that is really the only way to continue to do the show. And thank you guys for the feedback on that. I am getting better as I go. It is oddly a different skill set and a different level of technical prowess in order to do that. But I'm getting there. And this week I was very excited to speak to somebody whose career I've been a fan of for decades and I've been following forever. Miss Kathy Valentine, who you may know best as the bassist in a little band called the Go-Gos. She has a brand new memoir out called All I Ever Wanted. It is fantastic. I've read it twice. It is very, very good. I highly recommend it. It's a quick read. If you want something to read during the summer, it's perfect. There is also an audio version and a soundtrack. She did a whole soundtrack to it. So you could buy all three and enjoy it in three different ways. If you have an indie bookstore near you that you can buy it at, I'm sure they would be happy to order it for you and send it to your house. If you can't find an indie bookstore near you, feel free to email me at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com and I will investigate where the best place for you to buy it is. I mean, worst case, you can always buy it at Amazon, but always better to support local businesses, especially now, and indie businesses and mom and pops, especially now. But just buy it. It is great. You can pause this right now, buy the book, listen to it, and then listen to my chat with Kathy about all things television 1970. And it's a fun chat. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Kathy Valentine.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Kathy Valentine, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You're welcome. We were just chatting a little bit about how you enjoyed flipping through this TV guide. So this is my new quarantine style where I've scanned a TV guide and sent you a PDF. But you were saying just how much it used to be ubiquitous and you don't see it now.
Yeah, I mean, I had forgotten what a day-to-day, multiple day-to-day, times per day staple of life it was. It brought so much back, and I was blown away by so many aspects. We can just talk about all of them.
As we flip through. So you guys had a subscription when you were, this is 1970 that I sent you, March 21st and 27th, 1970. Was this when you were in the duplex with your mom or was it before that?
Let's see, 11 years old. We moved an awful lot.
Yeah, I remember you saying, or read it.
Yeah, this would have been This would have been probably right when we first moved there. Exactly.
And you mentioned in the book, too, that in the slim possessions that you had as you moved, the TV was always one of them.
Yes, and I guess you should tell your listeners you're referring to my book. Yeah, we had not a lot of stuff, but we did have a TV, and like I think most households did. Yeah. It went wherever we went.
Because it's interesting, because living in a single parent home, you would think of something like TV Guide, which wasn't cheap, would be sort of a luxury, but it was kind of like you couldn't not have it.
I think pretty much. I don't know for sure, but I think people, I don't ever remember not having a TV. Maybe in the 50s it was more of a luxury, when people were still like gathered around the radio a lot.
True. I think it's interesting, the generation that people who created art that you are in were the first generation to sort of create art who grew up watching television. And it's interesting seeing how that influenced the stuff that you did via music or anything else people did.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's interesting. So did you have all these TV guides or you just can access them?
I have them all. I physically have them in my house.
What?
Yeah, because when I was a kid, I was a latchkey kid who my parents didn't understand and kind of just left me to my own devices. And I used to pay for my own subscription to TV Guide. And so I had all the ones from when I was a kid, and then I've just sort of collected them over the years as well. So they're all in banker's boxes by year.
I think I'm going to have to start a podcast so I can interview you about this.
Please do. I have a lot of time on my hands now. But before we get into the issue here, too, one of the key moments in the book, I'll plug in the outro for and put links up, is you seeing Suzie Quatro on television. Like, that's sort of a key moment in what you would do later in life.
Absolutely. And luckily it was in England, and kind of a miracle because in England there was only 3 stations, so it was all a kismet kind of destiny and fate type of deal at work, because I just happened to be in England, happened to turn on the TV, happened to be Top of the Pops, and happened to be Suzie Quatro as the musical guest. And the reason it was so significant is that even though I was strumming a guitar and interested in music, it had never occurred to me that I could be in a rock and roll band.
Right.
That just didn't enter my mind because I didn't see women being in bands. I saw them strumming guitars, sitting at pianos, fronting bands as being a lead singer, but I never saw them as musicians. And even though there had been a lot of bands of women in the 60s and in the 70s prior to that, but I just didn't know about them. They didn't get in. They didn't filter down into my world. So never entered my mind till I saw her.
And it's interesting too because she's from Detroit, I believe, and really didn't make much of a stir here at the time. And so it's kind of weird you had to go to a foreign country to see an American rock and roll woman.
Yeah, well, she started her first band in, I think it was 1964, and she was 14.
Wow.
So she had been doing it for a long time, and she was kind of discovered by a producer that was in Detroit to produce Jeff Beck. And the brother, there was several sisters in her family, and they were all in a band, and the brother was a concert promoter and stuff. So he told the producer guy, you have to come check out my sisters and their band. They're really good. And that guy spotted Suzie, and she was a little frustrated. She, she was very driven and very determined and had really hard, like a big work ethic. And she was just determined to make it. She really saw this as a job and a career. It wasn't a novelty. It wasn't a hobby for her. She'd left school at 14 to go on the road. When she got that opportunity to go to England and be a star. Well, she wasn't a star right away. She was very lonely and stuff. But anyway, I shouldn't give away her whole story. She has a documentary coming out in July, and I really hope she starts I'm seeing her name crop up a lot. I'm glad I did my part in my book to give her credit, but I think I think she's really starting to get her due now, because she paved the way for Joan Jett and me and countless other in England especially, tons of musicians that are girls, teenage girls in the 70s became started bands because of her.
Yeah, it's that thing of representation that I think people overlook sometimes, where, especially television, which is kind of written off as junk food sometimes, but, happen to see someone like that as life-changing, or, somebody who caught the Go-Gos on SNL or on American Bandstand. And, it's one day where you go in a studio and play along, but you never know who that will reach and what they'll go on to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I also point out in my book that if it wasn't for TV beaming the Go-Gos into people's living rooms, I don't know if we would have had the success we had. I mean, I don't know how long we could have just gone out playing shows over and over and over, trying to get radio to add our record. There was a lot of resistance from radio, and it was the sales that were driven by the TV appearances and the videos that forced the radio stations to add us.
Right. Because they were desperate to compete. I mean, they were used to being the kings in the 70s, and now you have TV coming along and it's a real competitor and it's moving the trends. They were panicked.
Yeah, well, I'm very grateful. And I I knew it before writing the book, but when you write it out and really get the chronology and you just start seeing the patterns, and you see the way things kind of, when you write it down, it just has a different vantage point and a view, and it really made it very clear to me that was a crucial part of the Go-Go's success.
When you were writing, did you go back and revisit any of those live performances, or outside of the videos?
Oh yeah. I did a lot of research. It was became my procrastination method. It was a way to procrastinate, which I am a big procrastinator,
Same.
but to not feel guilty and not feel like a loser when I was doing it, because there's a lot of resistance when you sit down to write. At least for me, I shouldn't speak for every writer, but I just felt a lot of resistance, and at first I would do things like do my laundry, or anything seemed better than actually sitting down at a blank page. And then I got better at using that resistance to just kind of dive into the internet and collect information, and that would inspire me. At some point, something would trigger me, and I would just sit down and start wanting to write, whether it was listening to something or like you said, seeing a performance somewhere. It would just trigger a lot of memories, and all of a sudden it was easier to start writing.
Did it strike you did you feel disconnected from it when you watched it? Were you like, oh, I remember this exactly? Or was it kind of like, wow, this is sort of surreal?
Oh, both. Sometimes I would remember everything very clearly, and sometimes I'd be like, I don't remember doing that. No, the big ones, of course, I write a whole few pages about Saturday Night Live, but we did a lot of shows all through Europe and stuff that I don't remember that well,
Yeah, like I think you did the Tube, and did you do Old Grey Whistle Test? There was a ton of them, and all kinds of weird.
Yeah, I remember those, but there's when you're on tour and you would pull into Germany, and there'd be 4 TV shows to do in Germany.
Get on Music Loudon, and you don't speak any of the language, and there's one person who speaks some English. to stand there. So let's dive into the issue here. So this is 1970. I had you go through. Let's jump on Saturday night. What popped out to you? And this is an interesting issue because there's a huge article about using television in schools and how it's a bad idea and doesn't work, and how Jackie Gleason lost 61 pounds.
There's so much that would just be canceled if this was out now.
Absolutely.
It's just I cannot believe. Of course it's 50 years, I guess, and that's a long time, but man, it's just unbelievable. The ads, I could not believe the ads. They're so sexist.
I'm looking at one right now that it's one problem a married woman has to face alone. The problem, feminine odor.
The one that got to me was I'm flipping through, and forget just all the cigarette ads and stuff. Oh my God, this ad just killed me. It was for a whiskey. And so it's these two, this is couple log.
Oh yeah, the Canadian Club ad.
The text is isn't there an easier way to earn my Canadian Club? No. And then it goes, that's it. Don't spoil her. Make sure she earns her Canadian Club. Awful.
Make a woman log roll so that she can get whiskey from you.
God, and just earn it. Make her earn it. Yeah. She's oh man. Saturday night, March 22nd, 1970. So the first thing that I remember, I don't know if at 11 I still would have been into the cartoons. I think maybe I would have turned them on or something, but I had forgotten about the Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that was a big thing.
Yeah, it was so weird to have a time that was just for you as a kid.
Exactly. And again, I think at 11, it's a funny age because you're not really a kid, but you're still a kid in so many ways. And I think you still kind of are clinging to the vestiges of just that sort of feeling like this is my time. This is programming just for me. So yeah, I would have definitely been had the Saturday morning cartoons on.
It's also the time when you start to hide that sort of stuff, like the things you still like, childlike things, you still enjoy them, but you're sort of a little bit ashamed of it.
The ones I would have liked would have been George of the Jungle.
Classic.
Like of the Jungle. And there's not a lot. And then it goes right into tons of high school basketball.
Yeah, this is an issue from like middle Pennsylvania, so I'm wondering if it's something to do with that, or it's March as well. And not being a sports fan, I know nothing about March Madness, so I don't know if it's something to do with that, which I realized later. But do you have a favorite TV theme song?
Probably Mission Impossible or Pink Panther.
Also a good one. 2 instrumentals and very spy movie, which makes sense.
Exactly. And they were just kind of groovy, you know. Also, my favorite 2 bands when I was a younger kid was Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass and the Beatles. So it's kind of a natural progression to have those be my favorite.
Completely makes sense. It's funny when you're a kid, a lot of people I know their sort of first favorite song tends to be a TV theme song because kids don't have a lot of control over the radio. They can't necessarily buy records, but they know that at least once a week they can sit down and hear a song they like as it opens their favorite show. Yeah.
And, I of course am always, I'm always singing, I Dream of Jeanie and stuff. So yeah, they stick at I worry that on my deathbed that it'll be like theme songs from TV throughout the years.
or like ad jingles that you have no reason to still have in your brain.
Yeah, just running through your head, just random firing off. It's just like, no.
What memory that I wanted could be there instead. Anything else on Saturday that popped out to you?
Let's see. Believe it or not, I wasn't very into the Monkees. I would not have watched the Monkees. So
was that because you were a Beatles fan and it seemed kind of sort of childish, or it just didn't do it for you?
I don't know. It just didn't. It was kind of. I was never a big slapstick kind of type fan.
Right.
And it was bordered on slapstick.
Oh, yes.
A lot of physical comedy, and it just was never. I really liked the the spy shows. Get Smart, Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yep.
I like those kind of shows.
Man in a Suitcase, Secret Agent Man, and Patrick McGowan and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So let's see. On Saturday evening, I think I would have watched Petticoat Junction.
Yeah, which is a show that weirdly no one really talks about anymore, and people forget that Green Acres is a spin-off of Petticoat Junction.
I'm trying to remember the rest of it. All I remember is the Petticoat
Junction. Speaking of cancel shows, that one is a little bit iffy sometimes, but it kind of holds up. I don't know if you've revisited that show or Green Acres in your adulthood.
Not at all. So super sexist and on PC?
Petticoat Junction a little bit, but Green Acres is actually really, really progressive and smart and subversive and weird. And
wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. The stuff they got away with. Do you know Ann Magnuson?
Yes.
Ann Wanderon called it Sir Rural as the genre, but which was perfect. But like, there's an episode of Green Acres where Arnold Ziffel the pig gets drafted into Vietnam. Which is so, like, to get away with that on TV is insane.
Yeah, that's great.
But Petticoat Junction is a little bit less, is a little more, I guess, traditional. And I mean, when it comes down to it, it's a show about some guy's hot daughters and they live in a place called Hooterville. I mean, come on.
Oh, God. So, I liked Mannix. Did like Mannix.
So you're like the action.
Yeah, I guess I didn't ever think of that until I started looking at my history here. But yeah, that's what I would have been into.
Did you like murder mysteries and that sort of stuff too? Because you're a big reader.
Oh yeah, I loved murder mysteries. I loved it. At that, I mean, I was reading very macabre stuff. I mean, I remember reading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And
wow.
when I was like 4th grade. And I remember reading it cover to cover and just laying there sobbing in horror. And I read a lot about serial killers and from a very young age, I can't take any of that stuff. I can't take it. I'm really protective of my psyche, but I was curious.
It's interesting because you do mention that in the book a lot as well. Like, I think you mentioned Ed Gein, but I know you mentioned John Wayne Gacy and, pardon my dogs, they're losing their mind, and Ted Bundy and that kind of stuff. And it's funny now because everyone's obsessed with the serial killers, and it's especially a weirdly female phenomenon of this sort of fascination with serial killers now. But it was pretty unusual to be, I don't want to say into, but like interested in reading about those things at the time when they were contemporary. Yeah,
I really was. The Vincent Bugley, Helter Skelter.
Oh, yeah.
And I read all the Godfathers. I mean, anything. The Mario Puzo books. I was really interested in the crime and the spy and the action. I don't know what that was. I never really thought about it, and I did move on from that at some point and got more into history. But is it really? It's a female fascination?
Oh yeah, there's a thing called Crime Con. That's a convention about true crime, and my friends do the podcast My Favorite Murder, which gets like millions of downloads. And they did a live show in Boston, and Karen was like, "Oh, I'll throw you on the list." And I went, and it was at the Wilbur Theater, where I know you've played. And it was sold out, and I was literally the only man there, and it was all groups of women in like their mid-20s to like early 40s, and they were all dressed up for a night out on the town and just sitting listening about murders. It was really strange.
That's so interesting. I would never have thought that.
I've asked a lot of women that I know what it's about, and this might be also why you were reading it as a kid, and they've all told me it's because women have that vulnerability of one of my friends said, if you go on a Tinder date, for a guy it's I hope she looks like her picture, and for a girl it's I hope I don't get murdered. So women have this fascination with wanting to understand something that is a threat to them, and it's sort of comforting to be able to, if you know more about it. So
it's like knowledge is power sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. And also it's a new phenomenon now where it's also they're doing it as a group, so there's some sort of strength in that, I think. But it's weird.
It's too I mean, I can't even handle reading a Stephen King book now. It's just I don't know what. I think when I got sober too, it's just my feelings were just not capable of being put away. They're just there. And so I think back then I was also, maybe it was training for like putting my feelings in a box too. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people who tend to be creative, and I apologize for putting you in the same category as me, but we tend to be very empathetic, and so a lot of the things we do is to try and tamp that down or like callous that over when we can, because it's tough. But yeah, as an adult, I think part of it's just age too. Like I used to watch Cops all the time when I was growing up, the show, and think it was funny. Oh, they're chasing a guy and his pants fell, whatever it is. Yeah. And when I tune into it now, my heart I just feel horrible for everybody. Like it just is sad now. And
there's so much sadness and pain, and it's like I just don't. When I have my downtime, that's not what I want to feel. Maybe that's just the world just seems so sad and cruel, and I don't want my downtime to be filled with it.
Yeah, I think when you're younger too, and one of the great things about television for kids, especially those who like don't travel that much or anything like that, is you get to see and sort of virtually experience all these things that you would never encounter as a kid, luckily. Mm-hmm. And as an adult, the novelty of that isn't really there. You're like, I already know what that's like. I don't need to see it again.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if that's it. Anything else on Saturday?
No, I'm going through the evening, and then it's just turned into Sunday. I guess TV stopped pretty early back then.
I always explain this to younger people, and they never really believe me when I tell them that TV stopped.
Oh, yeah. Things that would happen at the end of the thing was just like, what was it, like the
National
the
anthem?
the noisy static and the stripes and stuff.
Oh, yeah, and it would always sign off in a really weirdly patriotic way, like, "We've done television, America." It would have, the national anthem.
Be like the national anthem. You're right.
Yeah,
huh?
flags waving. And when I lived in England for a while as well, and this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it shocked me that TV stopped there at that time. Like, they still did TV stopped. I was like, wow, what year is it? Very strange. So yeah, Sunday was always kind of a sad day in the morning. There wasn't a lot on, except unless you were really into Davey and Goliath.
No, I was only into Davey and Goliath when I was doing psychedelics as a teenager.
That's shouldn't those two things cancel each other out?
There was something about it that just intrigued the drug-addled mind.
I took LSD and all of a sudden the dog wasn't talking.
Sunday, I mean, there might have been, I don't know. I'm not saying movies for sure.
Yeah, it was a big night for movies. World of Disney was usually the big one for people, but you're probably at the age where you're like, Disney, blah. But there's an interesting show on this night. It's a thing called Disneyland Showtime, which is a musical romp through the famed amusement park, so a big commercial for Disney, but it features the Osmond Brothers and Kurt Russell.
Huh.
And Kurt Russell sings Sugar Sugar, the Archies song.
Bizarre. He must have been very young.
He was a kid actor in a bunch of Disney movies. He was in an Elvis movie and all kinds of stuff. And then he was moved back to Maine, and he became or got recruited to play Major League Baseball, and then got injured and went back to acting.
And then the Osmonds do like Aquarius and Let the Sunshine In.
Yes. Which is...
What does that have to do with, and this is all this to do with the amusement park romp, and what does those songs have to do with the amusement park? Whatever.
I guess trying to just get kids to think Disney World this would have been Disneyland, is cool.
Maybe so. And then there was, I might have watched the Archie special. I liked Archie enough as a kid that I might have tuned into that at 11.
It's weird that is airing with the Archies playing Sugar Sugar at the same time as the Disney show with Kurt Russell singing Sugar Sugar.
It really is. Somebody would have looked into that these days, right?
Yeah. Very strange. Anything else on Sunday?
Oh, wow. Tim Buckley was on the show. Wow.
Yeah, and he had just been on the second season of the Monkees, I think, before that.
And this is cool. Like, I don't remember this show called The Show, but it looks like a good show. They had Joseph Heller, the author, and Bob Walsh was the discussing person. Anyway, no, I don't recall that. And then, let's see, might have watched Glenn Campbell for sure, and would have definitely watched movies. Yes. Oh, Mission Impossible.
Oh, there you go.
That's what I would have been on.
When you were coming up with the Go-Gos, or even later, did you ever get to meet anyone that was on a TV show you watched as a kid?
I met Robin from Batman and Robin.
Oh, yeah. Burt Ward.
I met Burt Ward, and he signed he came to a Go-Go show, and I just put this on Instagram. You can find it on my Instagram.
Oh, I remember seeing that, yeah.
It's but because I've been organizing and cleaning during pandemic lockdown, and I found, oh my God, there's this photo that Burt Ward signed. It said, "Holy bottom end," and what I'm wondering is, like, why did he just happen to have photos with him? Like, you go to a concert with your photos? I don't know.
He would. I get hired to moderate a lot of Q&As at conventions, and he absolutely would go to work with photos. He wrote an autobiography called Boy Wonder that is more or less just a 200-page list of women he slept with.
Oh, God. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
No, and the cover of the book is the Rolling Stones Sticky Fingers album cover, except it's the little green Robin shorts.
Oh, for God's sake.
It's so gross.
That is real. Oh, man. That sounds like somebody that's trying to, in heavy denial about something.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, very much. Being typecast will do that. I wondered, too, if you ever crossed paths with the Monkees as well, because I guess it was a year or two later, but MTV sort of was the revival of the Monkees at the same time as it was probably around with talk show.
We did not. I think at some point in the late 80s, I met a woman who was dating Peter Tork, I think.
Okay.
I don't, it's just pretty vague. If I don't remember it well, I try not to go on about it too much.
In your book, you mention a band that I absolutely love that I don't think gets talked about enough. And there is a Monkees connection here, which is how my brain works. But the Plugs, who did a lot of the music for Repo Man, which is my favorite movie. And Repo Man was produced by Mike Nesmith from the Monkees.
Oh, that's right. Wow, I forgot about that. Yeah, I love the Plugs. Man, they were a good band.
Yeah, they sort of, you befriended them when they came through Austin, and then you hooked back up with them when you moved to LA.
Yeah, they were from El Paso, and when I got to LA, I found that the first kind of connection I could make with people was Texan expats, you know.
Right.
So we kind of tended to gravitate towards each other, and we would, bands from Texas would come through town, and there'd be like a little community of Texans greeting them, and we'd have parties where we made Tex-Mex food, the right kind of Mexican food, and, it gave me kind of a little friend group.
Because Westerns were huge, and by 1970 they had kind of started to dwindle, but they were like the major genre of television for years and years. Did you ever watch any of those growing up in Texas, or did it seem kind of silly?
I didn't watch Westerns. I mean, Austin wasn't exactly, people hear Texas, it's like in England, people would always just imagine like
London
on the range and stuff. So that wasn't my experience. But the only Westerns I liked were Clint Eastwood movies.
The spaghetti Westerns, the Sergio Leone ones. Again, you got those great twangy guitar soundtracks.
Yeah, I never watched any, Gunsmoke or any of that stuff.
They're pretty silly. I've tried to go back and watch them just knowing they were such a huge thing, and can't get into it. There's an amazing thing in the Mission Impossible that is on that night. Leonard Nimoy is in it, as well as Sid Haig, who is a character actor who's in a ton of horror movies.
It's an interesting episode. It doesn't sound very spy-like, this one. Oh, man, I loved that show so much. And, I like the movie still. Even though it's Tom Cruise, I like the movies. It's got too much nostalgia for me to totally dismiss the whole franchise.
They do what you want them to do. It ticks all the boxes of exactly what you want to see. It's like it's consistent, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's satisfying, I guess.
Did you ever see the revival they did in the late 80s?
Gosh, I don't recall that, no.
It was very weird. There was a writer's strike in Hollywood in 87 or 88. And so to get around it, CBS just filmed old scripts. So they did new versions of the same old Mission Impossible scripts from the 60s.
Oh, how weird.
It's really weird, and it doesn't quite work because they literally legally couldn't change a word, or else it would have been a breach of the writers' contracts. So it's scripts written in 1967 being filmed in 1987.
That actually sounds genius. I would like to see those. They're probably not viewable.
I think they might be on Amazon Prime. I feel like if you did that now in kind of a more knowing way, it could be really great, but it comes across very strange. And Peter Graves is in it, and it's just weird.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be something to do.
Monday night, what'd you do?
Monday's a good TV night. There's Hollywood Squares, or is that in the morning? That's the morning.
I would have loved Hollywood. I mean, Paul Lynde on Hollywood Squares is everything.
And Bewitched is on. Monday's a good day. Let's see. Well, they have movies so early in the morning, too. They have David Frost in the morning, and The Dating Game.
Yes.
Yeah, Newlywed Game. Yeah, for sure. I was probably parked in front of the TV quite a bit.
There's a very oddly named church program on. I don't know if you saw it on Monday night. It's a youth group from the First Baptist Church in Evansville presents a program on folk rock music, but it's called Sanctuary Swingers.
That sounds like a band.
Yeah, very strange. And Gunsmoke is on, again, not my thing. But a really great movie with Rock Hudson called Seconds is on CBS.
Well, I'm still looking at the afternoon, which not has Dating Game and Newlywed Game. I mean, I really probably would have just parked it. That Girl. I mean, Monday is just rocking. Just starting out with like, you got your Beverly Hillbillies right into Hollywood Squares, right into Bewitched. right into Newlywed Game, Dating Game. And then you get, I wasn't a Dark Shadows, didn't watch any soaps ever. But then you get the Munsters and Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
It's just like crazy. And, of course, I write about the Munsters in my book, too, which has pulled me out of a complete kind of collapse where all my defenses, I had gotten sober. I'd been sober, I think, just maybe 30, 60 days. It's still very new, and all the constructs are in place, I thought. And then I just get overwhelmed with this. I think it's what everybody fears when they get sober. Who will I be? Am I not the person I think I am? Will I be different? What will I? And everything kind of hit me at once. And I was in this place of just years and years of grief and abandonment and betrayal and sadness, just like crashing over me, waves, and I crawl into the bed, and I just think I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is just lay here and curl. And I had left the TV on in my bedroom, and the Munsters is on, and I just kind of crack my eyes open a bit, and I start giggling at this episode of the Munsters. And to me, it was just such a memorable thing. I loved writing about it because it kind of just illustrates how the most random, innocuous thing can just kind of make you turn the corner.
Yeah, it's to me, it's the great thing about television in that it's piped into your home, and it's sort of personal in the way that you're unlike a movie where you go out and it's a big event. It's sort of in your environment, and because of that, you can have this weird personal connection with it where it can also kind of snap you out of yourself at times, and it's sort of unique to television, I think.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I find it hard to believe that I would have done anything at all on Monday, because as you get into late afternoon, I would have watched I Love Lucy. I would have watched Dick Van Dyke for sure. It Takes a Thief was one of my absolute favorite shows.
That's a great show that no one really talks about anymore. It's kind of forgotten.
God, that was a good show.
And the premise of that was we need a criminal. It's kind of the Dirty Dozen, but with one guy, sort of. We need a criminal to help us combat criminals.
I'm surprised that's never been made into anything.
Yeah, I feel like they may have tried to do a movie version, but I don't think they did. I might just be thinking of the Saint. Can't remember. I do want to mention this Munsters episode that's on. I don't know if you looked at the description, but it's kind of amazing. It features the Standells playing a band called the Surfcombers.
Oh my God, it's that one.
Yeah, and I think the Standells are from Texas, aren't they?
Are they?
I think so, because they're always cited as everyone has a fun fact how even though they did Dirty Water, they're not from Boston. For some reason, I thought they were from Texas.
I've never heard that, and I've pretty much heard. I know Question Mark and the Mysterians were from Texas.
Oh yes. Mexican-American band. We'll have
to look up the Standells and find out.
I'm sure a listener will tell me whenever I get anything wrong, it's 25 emails of, what are you doing?
I wonder why they had to be the Surfcombers,
I wonder if it was because I don't know. That's really weird. Like, why couldn't they just be the Standells? Very strange.
What a great TV night. I would just do this right now. I would sit down and just have a 1970 Monday TV day if I could do that.
The great thing is you easily could at this point. Because although, let's see, Laugh-In is on. Was that a show you watched?
I loved Laugh-In. So yeah, this is just a completely wasted sloth day. In 1970. I cannot imagine doing anything other than watching TV on this day. But then again, it happened every Monday, so whatever. Yeah, Laugh-In. I loved Laugh-In. And then Carol Burnett was on, too.
It's like they know that Monday's the hardest day for a kid. School is terrible. You come home and you just need it.
And Dick Cavett's on, and Exodus is on. Oh my God.
I've been actually revisiting a lot of the Dick Cavett shows. People have uploaded them all on, or not all of them, but a lot of them on YouTube, and they're so good.
Incredible. I've been watching too, a lot of them. I got to meet him a couple of years ago. He was here for South by Southwest, and what a phenomenal guy. I told him my dad was in the hospital kind of really struggling, and I when I got to meet Dick Cavett, told him that my dad was a really big fan, and he made me call my dad in the hospital right there on the spot so that he could greet him. And it was just a phenomenal act of generosity and kindness, you know.
It is amazing when you see celebrities who do, I mean, that wasn't a huge lift for him, but makes such a huge difference just to take the time to just do something nice for someone when they just don't have to. They're just nice.
Oh, yeah. It's his idea.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I just mentioned in passing, you know, that I told my dad I was probably going to get to meet you, and he's a really big fan, and he just immediately just engaged, and wow.
I miss talk shows like that. I guess they're sort of, that sort of Dick Cavett format has sort of moved to podcasts almost now, but to have, you know, a full hour of just one guest talking in depth on a major network is insane. And I was watching one the other day, and it's him and Vincent Price, and they're literally just talking about how much they both love Oscar Wilde.
Oh, wow.
For an hour. They don't, it's not like plug this thing, talk about, it's like two people just chatting at a party about great things about Oscar Wilde.
They don't make them like that anymore.
No, sadly not. Harry Belafonte's all over TV this week. I'm just looking at Tuesday. He's on the Today Show doing a cooking segment.
Wow.
Anything else on Monday, or are we on to Tuesday?
I don't know. I think that was good.
Also, it's weird looking at Hollywood Squares. Betty Grable was on Hollywood Squares in the 70s, which seems crazy.
As a regular?
Yeah, the whole week she's on. It's Jack Carter, Betty Grable, Sally Ann Howes, Paul Lynde, Edward Platt, and Jackie Vernon all week.
Huh. It's very likely I would have tuned into that.
And on Tuesday, a great British sci-fi movie, Day of the Triffids, is on.
Oh, I didn't see that. I mean, I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's an amazing sort of weird post-apocalyptic British book, 40s, I think, where it's everyone goes blind at the same time as happens, and at the same time these like alien plants take over Earth.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool, weird, very English dystopian thing, but I think they've made it a couple times.
What time is that on?
That's on at 9:30. Oh, it's in the morning, 9:30 in the morning on Tuesday.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's another weird thing is the morning movies, isn't it?
It is. I'm like, who was that for? Because kids are at school on a Tuesday in March. You'd probably have, as sexist as it sounds, housewives would be the only people home. They're going to watch Day of the Triffids?
I know. That wasn't probably the best time slot for that movie. But yeah, the rest would just, you know, the usual sitcoms. And Mod Squad I liked. I would have watched Mod Squad for sure.
Mod Squad was very cool. I will go. That show is dated in the best possible way.
Mm-hmm. Really is.
Really weird, too, in the middle of the day, Art Linkletter's show is on. Art Linkletter is infamously, like, the most white, straight-laced person ever, maybe. And this episode features Dr. David Rubin, who wrote Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex, and Connie Stevens, who is on to discuss skirt lengths.
Oh, there you go. Compelling stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mod Squad is on, another youth show that, you know, I always wondered if kids at the time felt like they were being pandered to or if it felt like a cool show.
What, Mod Squad?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I never felt that. I never felt pandered to. I just, you know, it was just nice to see people that to me represented kind of, for lack of a better word, the counterculture. It was cool.
And they weren't presented in like a dragnet way, like, look at this kid, he did pot and now he's dead.
We also had the Johnny Cash show would be on.
Oh, yes. And you had some nice moments with June Carter Cash, right?
Yeah, I also got to meet Johnny several times, and you know, I was friends with Carlene Carter and still am. So it was amazing charisma. Johnny Cash, when he walked in a room, even if it's just walking in the living room of his house, it's just like he's just Johnny Cash. It's just like there's no distinction between what you think of him and then being there. It's just crazy. What just American heroes, Johnny and June.
It is weird that some people just have that thing. I don't know what it is, but it's like an aura or like a weird command of your attention, and they're not trying. It's just there.
Yeah. It's the real thing. I tell you what, there's a couple shows I really disliked. It was Hee Haw. Really tested that show.
You're my best friend now. I hate that show so much.
God.
It's enragingly awful.
It's so stupid and bad, and I detested it then, and there was just so much corny, bad, horrible stuff, and I'm, there's still things that can bring back. I mean, a lot of, I don't know, it's that element can still happen today. That's not a specific to an era, any badness.
I feel like you could air episodes of Hee Haw in most of the United States right now from the 70s and people would just eat it up.
God. Yeah, I think so.
Great.
And That Girl, of course, was on Thursday morning.
I love That Girl.
Yeah, me too. Loved That Girl.
It's funny that Marlo Thomas is the first second generation actor I can think of that became really famous on television. I'm trying to think if there's anyone before that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because Make Room for Daddy was Danny Thomas, her father, who opened St. Jude's Hospital, which I always feel the need to point out because that's amazing. But she became a star in her own right. And I feel like a lot of people didn't even know, at least now, that she was... More people know her now than I think know Danny Thomas, which is crazy because he was one of the biggest stars in the world.
Yeah. I don't have an explanation for that.
I wouldn't expect you to. You don't have the insights into Danny Thomas's fame. But there's an amazing thing on Wednesday night at 7:30 called Music on Television. And it's a Canadian documentary and it actually says this, about, of all things, pipe organ enthusiasts.
Wait, is that Wednesday evening or Thursday?
Wednesday at 7:00. And it's a documentary called My Wife Said That's Enough. And it's music on television about pipe organs.
Yes, I see it. Okay. and this is an Ontario man who undertakes the task of rebuilding an old Wurlitzer. Okay.
Which sounds kind of interesting now.
Yeah, but television, wow. Okay.
Primetime TV, they're showing the guy in Canada building an organ. You could make a comeback. Maybe in the world of social distancing, that'll be TV in the future. It's just some guy in his house putting an organ together in Ontario.
Well, I'm sure there's stuff like that all over YouTube.
That's true. It's oddly comforting. What do you got on Thursday?
That's when I saw the That Girl.
You know what's weird too? I'm still looking at Wednesday, but the Engelbert Humperdinck show is on.
Yes.
And they have Joel Grey performing Beatles songs.
Oh, man.
He's doing Sgt. Pepper and With a Little Help from My Friends.
Oh, that's too weird. That is just weird.
Right? I'm trying to think of who like a modern day equivalent of Joel Grey would be, and to have him on TV now doing like contemporary pop hits. I can't even imagine.
I'm blanking, but it sounds like I'm sure we could come up with that.
Yeah.
Some people are so fast; they just like immediately they would pop out with a name that's perfect.
Oh yeah.
What I'll do is it'll bother me all day, and then I'm like, I know.
Yeah, just email me and I'll put it in the outro. Or I'll just overdub your voice. Like I'll do it in Pearl. It'll be perfect. There's a great Bewitched on Thursday night with Henry Gibson from Laugh-In, and he's playing a leprechaun. That's
so awesome. He plays a leprechaun. Oh, good. And Endora. I always liked when Endora was around.
Yeah. Agnes Moorehead she's one of those people that I always talk about on the show how you were either a movie star or a television star, and if you switched to one or the other, you were stuck in that thing. And so a lot of people who were in television, it was either they were just starting or at the tail ends of their careers. And Agnes Moorehead had been a huge movie star, and
yes.
But she's still a movie star. Like when she's on that show, she just has that thing. Like she's a movie star.
She commands it. And I had a thing when I was younger, more like age 9, a few years before this, where for some reason, Bewitched got me obsessed with the advertising industry, and I wanted to be an ad man. And I wrote all these commercials out. It's a really good example of how supportive my mom was. I write a lot about my mom in my book, and some people are like, oh my God, your childhood, she didn't do anything. She was, a terrible mother, this and that. But I have to say, She didn't parent me a lot. She didn't give me any boundaries. There was no guidance, but she was so supportive of anything. I mean, even at age 9, when I said I've written some commercials for some companies and products, and my mom sent them all out. She got addresses and sent them. Maybe she was just trying to put me to work. I don't know, but
no, but it's not quite the same as like the Cavett thing, but for little things that adults can do, even if they lack in so many other areas, can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. I always felt supportive. I never was laughed at or said, oh, you can't do that. And of course, when I decided to be a musician, I had her complete and utter support. And that's a pillar. That is a pillar of parenting, too, that not everybody gets. So my fascination with the ad world happened because of Bewitched.
I facetiously used to describe Mad Men as someone remaking Bewitched without the witch part.
Yes.
Like, this Bewitched show is great. If we could get rid of the witch and just set it in the 60s and make it about ads.
But they were such hipsters and they were such dorks on Bewitched.
That's true. Were you a first Darren or second Darren fan?
I didn't like either of them.
Yeah, they do kind of suck. I was a big fan of Agnes Moorehead and of good old Uncle Arthur, Paul Lynde. And so when they would show up and just make Darren's life miserable, it was fantastic.
Yes, they always, I mean, Paul Lynde, man. I just feel like, you know, some people are just so distinctive, so distinctive, and nobody even tries to model their persona on Paul Lynde. They know it can't be done.
Oh yeah, and we just don't have, or I guess fame is different now, but those people who could anchor a variety show just based on their charisma. And Paul Lynde was one of those people. There's actually on Amazon Now streaming, they have the Paul Lynde Halloween special for 1979, and his musical guest is Kiss.
Oh, cool.
It's very weird.
Yeah, he's timeless.
There are so many variety shows on week. It's like every night there's a different variety show.
Yeah.
Thursday we got Dean Martin. Albert Brooks is on doing stand-up.
Oh, that's amazing. The Jim Neighbors show.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
oh man,
every night. It's crazy. Man. So were we still on Thursday or did you go into Friday?
Dean Martin. Did you just say Dean? Oh yeah,
Dean Martin. He's got Albert Brooks on, and this must have been one of Albert Brooks's first TV appearances.
Very young.
What do you get Friday?
Friday night.
Love American stuff.
No, but I tell you, I don't really want to admit this, but I liked Here Come the Brides.
Okay. I don't know if I've ever seen it. That was an hour-long sort of dramedy?
I don't know. I just liked Bobby Sherman, you know?
Yeah.
I just liked Bobby Sherman. I just thought he was the ideal man.
Did he do records? I feel like he put out records as well.
Yes, did records, and I would have been pulling out of it because I was definitely into rock and roll at 11, and radio, so I would have been pulling out of it, but I still would have watched Here Come the Brides. It's not even Here Come the Brides. Here Comes the Brides. That doesn't sound right.
I don't think that's grammatically correct.
Neither.
David Soul is in that episode too.
The boys are on TV for a movie.
I love that movie.
Yes.
That's a rare movie where there's females in the lead in a sort of teenage comedy.
Well, look at this snarky little description, though. It goes, the plot, ? Girls look for guys on the beach, in the clubs, near the pool, in a fish tank, ... That's pretty snarky for TV Guide.
Big time. One of the things I've noticed since doing the show is TV Guide is actually super bitchy. Like, it gets really snarky, especially when they don't have to have their name attributed to anything they write, where it's anonymous. They get very snarky.
Oh, see, I don't have that experience with looking back at it like you do. So that's news to me. I also was struck by how many of the time it would say approximate time.
Yeah.
Like, just like right up front, like sometime around 8, the show will be on. We can't guarantee it. That's pretty cool.
Local news would sometimes run over. There was a fascinating thing. I think it was the Tonight Show. For a time, they did a 2-hour version of it instead of 90 minutes. And the first half hour was kind of like almost like a pre-show that they would have on, because some markets, sometimes their news would go over and sometimes it wouldn't.
Oh, okay.
So we're like covering time. It's very strange.
Now they'll do it for like a sports game. They'll stop things. On Dick Cavett that night, he had Buffy St. Marie, which is super cool.
just the breadth and width of guests that he had on that show is crazy.
I love stuff on YouTube with Janis Joplin. I've watched all of those.
Oh yeah, those are great.
And then we can't bypass this ad of this couple like running or walking barefoot on the beach with their cigarettes. We and our Winstons. Like speaking of bad people, just like, can you imagine like Darren walking in to Larry Tate or any ad man with that phrase? Okay, I've got it. That's what I imagine them like pulling out the easel and putting up the big poster board with the
yeah, it's like, we got a real good thing, a real good taste. We got our Winstons.
We and our Winstons. Big ads.
It's shocking to see things that you don't realize you don't see anymore until you look at something old. Like, I don't know when the last time I saw a contemporary cigarette ad was. It had to be at least 25 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I even write about that in my book. Like, I was like, you would think that would be alarming to people, that they pulled all that and they put warnings on the packages, but it didn't make anyone quit smoking.
No. You know? Have you seen the stuff they have on cigarette packs in the UK?
Yes. It's scary, like skulls and crossbones and stuff, pictures of rotting lungs and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and that doesn't deter people, so I don't know if anything would.
And then there's the wonderful Jackie Gleason story with the side-by-side pictures. That's pretty wild. He didn't have to give up his martinis.
That's true. He looks so unhealthy in that first picture, too.
Yeah.
I have such weird mixed feelings about Jackie Gleason. He's so likable. He's one of those people that you just love. But he stole so much material from people. And all those records he put out as the Jackie Gleason Orchestra, which I love, he had nothing to do with, apparently.
Oh, really? A name thing? A brand?
Yeah, which is, like, really disheartening. I was like, I guess why would he? Why would Jackie Gleason be a big band leader? But he's just something about him where you're just like, he's just so watchable.
Iso Hex soap. Yes. I remember how that felt and smelled. I don't know why we didn't buy it.
To wrap up, is there anything you watch now?
What am I watching? Oh, I started watching with my daughter. We started at season 1 of Curb Your Enthusiasm because she's old enough now that the complete wrongness of it, and it's just fun to watch something so, often vulgar and crude and just hilarious and super dated. I mean, God.
Oh, yeah.
Realize how dated it would feel to go back, but really enjoying watching. We're now on, and I've watched the whole thing from the beginning, but watching it a second time with my daughter has been really fun. And the thing I loved most in my pandemic TV was Better Call Saul. I hadn't been watching that, so I binged over a couple of weeks the whole thing, and I just think it's phenomenal.
Were you a big Breaking Bad person as well?
I was, but I think this is a better show, and I never thought I would say that.
Yeah, it seems to have more, not depth to it, but more like facets, I think, maybe?
They go inside, whereas I felt like with Breaking Bad, looking back, everything just had to keep upping itself and topping itself and more outrageous and more just... and very like externally more. Whereas I feel like Better Call Saul, it just goes more and more internal, just these complexity of these people and these relationships. And, I'm really excited about the last season. So I think Kim Wexler is going to do a total Walter White. I think. I don't know what's going to happen.
It's kind of great watching a show where you legitimately don't know where it's going, which is hard to do.
Yeah, so I'm surprised, but I think I might do Breaking Bad again. It made me really miss that show too. As much as I think it's better, it made me want to go back and watch that whole thing again. So yeah, I don't know what else. I'm trying to be super productive with this downtime, and I try to get something in at night, get an hour of TV in.
Are there comfort shows that you go back to, like that you watched as a kid or anything?
No, I don't have time. I either have to forge ahead and kind of dive into what's culturally relevant, or I'll probably would just do something else. I would, if I had time, I would, but...
There's so much to watch. I can't go back and redo things when there's this pile of stuff I haven't touched yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've got books I have to read. I've got stuff I have to write. There's just time is such a premium, and something that happens when you get to be... Maybe it happens to other people earlier, but for me, somewhere in my mid 50s, and I'm 61, and I don't feel like it. I don't look like it. I don't act like it. But the one thing that's very different is I feel this acute sense of urgency. Like, I don't have all the time in the world, and there's a very finite amount of time, and there's just so much I want to do and get done, and I don't lounge around and indulge myself that much. And I mean, I used to be able to lay on a couch and watch TV and read magazines all day long.
Right.
And I would never do that now. I would never, ever do that.
Even now, I mean, where we feel like we have all the time in the world being at home, it feels like regardless of age, you have to fill every minute with something for some reason. I don't know. I think part of that's in the air too.
Yeah, I think I just feel like there's just so much I want to do. And, you just start, there's so much death, and people are dying, and people that you looked up to and grew up idolizing, and people I know, and you just kind of start feeling like, okay, I better get with it.
Yeah.
I got to get to it. If I want to write another book, if I want to make another record, if I want to, it's poignant, but at the same time, it feels kind of good to be driven,
Yeah, you need something to drive you. It's not always a good thing that does it, but it's still, the fuel still works.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, still know how to fill up.
Right. Although gas is, you wouldn't want to drink it, and it's explosive. It still gets you where you're going.
I really enjoyed talking to you. It was really great. It's so much fun and really different than anything I've done. And thanks, Ken. I enjoyed it.
There you go. That's Kathy. I have the utmost respect for her and just really love her work, and her book is great, and she's so smart and funny, and it was an honor to speak to her, and even if it was remotely, that was great. So she also did a sort of roundtable event with Tanya Donnelly from Belly that was supposed to be at Once Ballroom in Boston physically, but they did a virtual one, and Once is a great venue here. They're doing a lot of virtual events, so you can help support them by going there. Again, ask me if you can't find links, if you can't Google it, but the whole virtual event, book event, Q&A and all that of Kathy and Tanya is up on YouTube. And again, if you can't find it, let me know. I'll put up links. I've taken a break from my daily videos just because it seems a bit trite in the world today, but I'll probably pick that back up once things become a bit less apocalyptic. I appreciate you guys listening to the show, and it is a nice respite from some of the things in the world without ignoring them, because you can't. And again, if you guys want to reach out to me, feel free. My brain is a bit mush these days, but I will do my best to get back to you and engage as much as I can. I have good days and bad, as I'm sure we all do. You can do so at ken@icanread.com or tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com, or again at tvguidance or at Kenneth W. Reed, REID, on the social medias. I'm here, sitting here in my lockdown office. Haven't left my house in months. I left twice. I went out once, drive through to get my prescription for my crazy pills. And I went out once because Ted, the poodle, needed his annual vaccines, and I can't let Ted miss his vaccines. So I didn't get out of the car either time. And aside from that, I haven't left the house since I got back from Los Angeles at the end of March. So in many ways, I've been training for this for decades. My house is a fortress of entertainment for me. And that's probably a good thing, I think. Who knows? Anyway, things are weird. But I'll be here next week. So don't forget that I'm planning on being here each and every week. Still haven't missed a week since Valentine's Day 2014 when I started the show, and I am trying to stick to that as best as I possibly can. You guys are great. Thank you so much, and I'll be here next time, and I hope you will too, for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
I think I'm going to have to start a podcast so I can interview you about this.